Hi, this is Suzanne in Ohio. I have a project I want to share here with you today. I have put this off for so long because I knew it would be hard to do with my camera setup. But I'm almost finished with this textile piece, and I wanted to show you how I went about it and the story behind it. And while I'm talking, you can try to decipher here what's going on in this textile piece. It's a little log cabin and a barn, um, a roadway in a snowy setting. And I, as many of you know, if you've watched my videos, I'm in temporary housing with my sister, and almost all my supplies are in storage. But I just had to have something to work on. So I had this idea in my mind for a long time, and I just went to the thrift store one day to see if I could find pieces and parts. Now, I did bring a few things here with me, which was bags of lace and scraps, but I had no wool. I had no anything like that. So, what a lucky day at the thrift store. And to explain here, everything you see that looks like wool are actually upholstery samples, and I found stacks of them at the thrift store that day. So that's what I decided to use. So I created the scenery, and I'm going to pull it down just for a minute so that you can see the sky area. It's kind of like, a very overcast, snowy day. And I put clouds and some dark blue and then overlaid lace and tulle and all kinds of things on this. And then lots and lots of stitching, which I still have some stitching to do. I want to stitch it to the point that it almost melds together as one piece of fabric like a quilt would. So I had the basic idea of sky, forest, old farm, and I began to put it together, and it was a learning experience, believe me. I cut up old doilies and all those scraps of lace that I have to create what looks like background foliage with snow on it, and a pine tree forest all along here. Some of that's lace, some of it's cheesecloth, and then embroidery stitches on top of it. And so as you go down the scenery, you have, I'm checking to make sure I'm in frame. You have this little log cabin, and I padded it a little bit. That was an afterthought because the more I put on the piece, the more it disappeared. So I thought, well, it needs to stand out a little bit. So I padded it a little bit, and I have yet to stitch down the roof. And then um, when you see this up close, your brain interprets all of this, the fibers and everything, as bushes and undergrowth and weeds and all kind of things like that. Then I have my little barn, and I padded it too. I did put a silo back here, but it's not very distinguishable. You would have to look real close. And this path comes down through here, and over here's a little pond, and then these rolling hills coming down toward the pond. And I used, in the big areas, I used white velvet that I found at the thrift store. And then I laid some lace over top of different parts of the velvet, and it gives a beautiful look of snowdrifts and things like that. Along this edge here, I had a lot of sticky uppy stuff, and that looks like a big growth of weeds right along the path, snow blowing on the path, and then all these little short turkey work kind of stitches. Just looks like you might think of them almost as cattails or something like that beside the pond. And that's where I worked first. I worked the top half first, and then I had a basic idea how to fill in the bottom and wondered if I could carry it off. But I did, and so what I did over here, I'll show you this one first. This whole snowy area, big snow drift, and lots of vintage lace coming out from under there as if there's a lot of underbrush with snow on it. And then I created these fence posts, and they are three-dimensional. And I'm getting ready to stretch some. I have some linen cord, very small, that has enough body to it, and I'm going to stretch it between these fence posts as if it's kind of like barbed wire or something like that. And of course, you would have little clumps of weeds and everything like that growing at the bottom of the fence posts. So I put all that stitchery work in there. And over here on this side, same thing, big snow drift coming down this way with what would be considered bushes and things like that sticking out. And then along this side of this path, I used a lot of long stringy turkey work kind of stitches and left my fibers real long as if it's almost, I think it makes me think of sage grass, which that's what we had on the farm when I was growing up down in the country. I don't know if you have it here in Ohio or anywhere else, but it is all over the place in West Virginia. So as your eye enters the scenery, it comes up this path and follows along, and then you have several points of interest up here. Now, to mount this thing, when I get it done, which will be soon, I thought about it long and hard. It's so three-dimensional. I decided to create, I have a very stiff, 2 layers actually, of fusible pellon. And then I took all my scraps from the upholstery fabrics and blocked them around very randomly. And then that will lay in the back. I'll see if I can get it on here to show you. That will lay behind the piece, just sticking out the edges. And it will be what I call a soft mounting. And I've done that with several pieces, and it works beautifully. It actually gives another dimension to it, because dimension for me is like layer on top of layer on top of layer. It gives you some depth. And then I love to leave my textiles sticking out the edge. So over here where all the snow comes down, I'm going to leave that hang down into the so-called frame. And then just I will create a backing on it that keeps it from warping as it's hanging on the wall. It will be a wall hanging. And I've never grown attached to anything that I've created before, but this might be the first one. Meaning grown attached to it to the point that I couldn't part with it. But I don't know if I'll keep this or put this up for sale. If anybody's interested, you can contact me on my email, because I won't put this on Etsy because of the exorbitant amount that they take. So if you know anybody that loves an old-fashioned farm scene in winter, share my video with somebody that appreciates the country, and I hope you're stitching, and I hope you enjoyed this. I'll give you probably a tiny follow-up when I get it completely done, and then we can take a look at it again together. It sure was fun to see what I could create out of nothing. Something from almost nothing. Well, I thank you for watching, and if you haven't already, please check out Roxy's Journal of Stitchery on Roxy Creations channel. Her and her sister Sarah are doing a project, I'll call it. It's not a challenge. but it's to do more stitching, learn some embroidery stitches, and when it's all done, you will have created a small book, fabric book of stitchery that will be a timeless piece for you. All right, thanks for watching. Bye bye.